Hi, so welcome to this week's video. So this week I've picked myself up two faulty Nintendo Switch Lites locally. So this cost me £40 for the pair. I was promised that they both worked in some kind of a way. So this one, the first thing we open and we find it's got an SD card in it, which is a bonus. It's in rough condition, as is the other one. We have a little once over, check for an SD card, check for a game, but unfortunately we get no little bonuses in this one. So I was promised that they both start up. Once charged, they're just a bit battered. So as you can see, we put the charger into this one and we do get a charge symbol in the corner. And we turn it over and it's charging both sides, so the port should be okay. We do the same on the other one and I'm not getting a charge on that side. I'll flip it over, I'm not getting a charge on that side. So I'm going to leave this one on charge for a little while and I'll start on the other one to begin with. So the first one I'm going to do is the non-charging one. So we'll come in and we'll take out all of the screws out to the side and the back, and then we'll just peel off the back cover. Just need to get it over the USB-C port there. And then we'll take up the screws off the heat shield and we'll remove that as well. So there's a bit of damage to this, so I'm not sure if it's already been opened. We'll just disconnect the ribbon cable and disconnect the battery. And then we'll have a look under the microscope at the USB-C port, and then as you can see we've got a lot of bent pins, so we've got some good damage in there. So this is definitely going to need a new USB-C port fitting. So we just need to remove all the screws. So we'll take the heat pipe out, we'll take the shoulder button off, we'll take the game cart out, remove all the ribbon cables, and then we'll wriggle out the motherboard. So we'll get it under the microscope. First thing we'll do is we'll check around the M92 chip to see if there's any shorts around this. So if it beeps on either side of any of these chips, it normally means there's a short. There's no shorts that I'm currently finding, so hopefully that means the chip's okay. So first off, I like to prep the port that I'm going to fit. So I'll come with a flat bladed knife and I'll gently lift up these pins that are hidden. Then we apply some flux and then we'll apply some solder. Make sure that the solder across all the pins, and then it'll make it easier for when we're going to mount it to the board. Now we'll hang it over the side and then we're going to come with some hot air. So come around about 400 degrees C. We'll heat from below, make sure you apply plenty of flux, and then just keep moving the heat around. You need to be really careful. You do not want to be touching any of the board underneath, because you're going to make some damage, you're going to knock some chips off, and you're going to turn it into a bigger job. Once you can see the board beginning to wiggle, just make sure you get all the solder port legs nice and melted before you lift away, and then we lift it away and we don't have any torn pads, which is perfect. We'll come in with some solder wick, plenty more flux, and then what I tend to do is use my hot iron and my hot air station together, and then this will get rid of all of the solder out of the port legs, and this will make it a lot easier for later when we're going to refit a new USB-C port. Now just apply a little bit more flux and I'm going to apply some fresh solder to these pads, so there's plenty of solder for it to attach to, and then we give it a good clean with isopropyl just to get rid of all the old dirty flux that's on there. Now we'll come with some fresh flux, probably don't need as much as I've done, and then we'll heat from below. All we need to do is now make sure that the pads begin to melt before we place the port, otherwise we're going to melt the port if we leave it too late. And then we'll pop it into place, hold it down, and then you can remove the heat. Once you remove the heat, just keep holding it for a good few seconds to make sure it goes solid, and then we look under the microscope, and as you can see, all them legs at the back look perfect. So we just need to come with a little bit of flux now, so we can apply plenty of solder into the port legs. This will make it nice and solid. This will stop it from breaking in the future. So just hold on a big tipped iron and let the solder flow all the way through. Do that on all four of them. And then once you're done, we can give it another good clean with isopropyl to remove all the excess flux. Do it on the back and then flip the board over and do it on the front. Now I'm going to plug the board into the battery, and then we'll plug our amp meter in. And then we get something on the screen straight away, which is what we want. So it's not making any movement at the moment. It could be that the battery's flat, but we'll flip it over, make sure it's charging on both sides. Just give it another quick check. So it's not charging on both sides, which is strange. So what I do is I keep trying, it doesn't work, so I decide to try another USB-C port. So same again, give it a good clean, apply some fresh flux, get my port all prepped, pop it on, hold it down, making sure that it's definitely connected. And then we'll plug it in, and as you can see we're charging on one side. We'll flip it over, but we're still not charging on the other side. So I've read that this could be the M92 chip, so what we'll do is we'll apply a little bit of flux around the M92. Even though it shows no signs of being faulty, sometimes they can do that. So plenty of hot air, plenty of flux, and then we'll lift it away, we'll come with our new one, just get it into position as best as you can, give it a little nudge if you require, and then once you're happy we can let it cool down, give it a little clean, and then we'll have a look under the microscope to make sure that we're happy with the placement of it and it all seems okay. So we'll go back to testing it again. So we'll pop the battery in and then we'll come with our amp meter. So we've got a charge on one side, which is perfect, which we've had all along. Now if we flip it over, will we get a charge on the other side? We now get a charge on the other side, so at least this part of the issue is fixed, but it doesn't seem to be stopping and starting at the moment. So I'm going to put it back into the housing fully to see if anything shows up on the screen. So we connect the battery, connect the ribbon cable, fold it over, and then we'll press the power button on the top and then have a look at the screen, and we're getting nothing on the screen. And then we'll plug it in. So what should happen is you should get a voltage and an ampage. After a couple of seconds, the ampage should go down to 0 and then jump up. This shows that the switch is booting. Unfortunately, it's not doing that, so it definitely means the switch is not booting initially. So we've got another problem that we need to look at. So I'll get the torch out just in case it's actually showing and there's something wrong with the screen, but I'm not hearing anything, I'm not seeing anything. So I'm pretty sure it's not a screen issue, it's definitely a motherboard issue. But I'm going to give a quick check to this daughter board cable. This sometimes can go faulty, so bring in a fresh new one that I know works, plug the battery in, turn it on. It's not turning on initially. We'll plug it in and we've still got the same charge. So unfortunately it's not the daughter board cable at fault. So I've read it could be the Max 17050 chip that causes the issue. So come with me hot air and I'm just going to apply a little bit. And then this will lift off nice and easy. So we'll take it away and then we just need to come in with some fresh flux and then our solder wick and then ideally a decent sized tip. This is quite small but it's doing the job, and we just need to remove the excess solder, give it a little clean, and then we've got a new chip coming in, a little bit of flux in place, hold it in place and then come with some hot air. So apply the hot air, then hold it for a couple of seconds, and then once it's in place you can move it away. And then we just come in with a little bit more flux squirted underneath, and then we come with our hot air and then just wait for the solder to take, and there you can see it's bumped into place, and then you can even give it a little nudge if you want to show that the solder's melted and it's definitely connected. Once it's cooled down we give it another clean. Just keep cleaning as you go along, you don't want your board covered in flux. So we're going to stick with the known working daughter board cable. We'll plug the battery in, we'll press the power button, we'll turn it round and have a little look, and there's nothing on screen. We'll plug it in and then as you can see we're getting an ampage of 0.224, which shows the battery is a little bit low, but even with a known working battery it's still not booting. So unfortunately I'm struggling with this one. I'm going to have to say at the moment this is going to have to be a no fix. So we're going to move on to switch number 2. So as you can see, this one turns on. So we'll just do a couple of tests beforehand to make sure everything's okay. So we check the Wi-Fi, it works okay. We do a quick button test, so we go through, make sure that all the buttons work. So we check all of them and they all work as they should do. We check the touchscreen, all the touchscreen works, although I'm likely to change this anyway when I rehouse it. We'll check the joysticks, the analog sticks, both of them work perfect as you'd expect, but they obviously will need changing as well. And then the final thing is to check the game. So pop a game in, and then as you can see I get this error. So we have got a fault. It's not going to be as simple as it's going to be a shell swap. We've also got a fix on it to do as well. So this is just a cheap case I bought off AliExpress. It comes with all the buttons and the likes. I'll leave the link in the description. So first thing we need to do is get our iFixit kit out, and then we need to strip it down. So take out all the screws off the side, all the screws off the back, come with our lipper, just peel this one apart again, and then the back peels off. Always lift from the bottom. So it's getting stuck in this other corner. So it's okay at the top, but then I noticed that there is a screw somewhere deep down. So it's sort of broken, which it doesn't really matter because we're going to be replacing it anyway. And now we need to come with our screwdriver again and remove the screws out this heat shield. Peel that off. First thing you always have to do is disconnect the battery, so the ribbon cable comes out, then the battery does. then remove all the internals, then remove the heat shield, and then we just remove the game card. So it actually looks okay. So I've got a couple of spares, so coming straight away with a spare, we'll plug it back in and we give it another test. So we turn it back on, wait for it to boot up, and then we'll get our known working game. Just hold the cart in place, we'll pop it in, and then as you can see, we're still getting the error. So it's definitely not the game card that's at fault. I've tried several different ones, they can't all be faulty. It's got to be something else. So I'm going to have to get the motherboard out. It's going to have to be something board level, and then we'll have a little look under the microscope. So everything under there looks okay. The USB-C port does look like it's being swapped. That's definitely not a factory USB-C port. You can tell from the solder on the port legs. And I'll have a little look around, and I can see bits of dirt and bits of flux, so it's not being cleaned up great either. So this chip here can sometimes be the issue, or it's the M92 chip, which can also cause an issue. But I'll keep having a little look around, see if there's any other things that I can see that's a fault. The rest of the board seems okay. The connection that the cart reader goes into also looks okay. I can't see any major damage on this. So we'll come with some flux on the M92, and then we'll heat the board up on 380 degrees C, leave it on there for a couple of minutes. The solder melts, we'll lift it away. Whilst the solder's still melted, we'll come with a new one, just hold it into place, and then I just tend to press down. If I've added a little bit extra solder to the chip, which I have, so it can sometimes squirt out, as you can see, but all I need to do is come back in once it's dried with my tweezers, hold it down, make sure all the excess solder squeezes out. So I'll make a little bit of a meal of this one by knocking it back and forward, getting a bit too rough. So I'll start off coming in with my big tipped soldering iron to remove the excess, and now we're going to come back in, give it a clean. So I've got a few other little solder balls on the side which have come out. Smaller tip can remove them, and then I get a little bit of solder on the cap there, so just need to carefully remove that, and then round the other sides remove any of the excess solder that's squeezed out. Give it a good clean with isopropyl, keep cleaning as we go along, and then I just need to apply a little bit of flux to that chip where I've added a little bit of excess on there, give it a clean up. So a quick look under the microscope. So it's off centre very, very slightly, but nothing too bad. I'm happy with that. All the legs look like they're joined, so we can crack on from there. So we'll reapply the battery, we'll reapply the ribbon cable, pop it into place, we'll turn the switch back on, and then let it boot up. So we'll get our game, pop it in, and unfortunately it's come up with the same error, so I was convinced that would fix it. Fortunately it's not. So back to the drawing board. So this is the other chip that I was mentioning. So on the back near the top is this chip here. So I believe this sometimes can have an effect on the game card, not reading. So we'll come with some flux on the side, we'll come with some heat, 380 degrees C, and same again with this, but we're not going to remove it, we're just going to go for a reflow. So we're making sure that the flux flows underneath. We're going to leave it on for a minute or two, and then we're going to wait for the solder to melt. Then we'll come with our tweezers and we'll very gently just give it a little nudge, and then once we can see it moving, we know the solder's melted, and then hopefully the solder balls underneath have reflowed. So it can take a little bit of time, don't rush it. Once you're done, just leave it, let it cool down. Once it's cooled down, we'll come in with our isopropyl and then give it a good clean. Don't do this until it's cooled, otherwise you're going to wreck the chip itself. So again, we put it back together, we'll turn it on, flip it over, wait for it to boot up. And now we're booted in, we'll pop our game cart in, and then hopefully we're going to get something good. So we click it in, and then as you can see, it's now showing on the screen. So obviously we're going to have to boot it up to make sure that the game actually works. So the only game cart I've got at the moment is Pac-Man. So I'll pop it in. The console's half taken apart, so we can only play very carefully, but as you can see, it's working fine. It's reading the game cart, so it's definitely fixed. So the only thing that needed doing then was a shell swap. So I've done a whole video recently on swapping the shell of Nintendo Switch Lite, so didn't need to show it again, especially as this video's getting on a little bit. So I'll link that in the description if you need to see it yourself. But this is the Switch case itself. It's not bad for a cheap one from AliExpress. I do prefer Extreme Rate, but I didn't have any spare Extreme Rate ones at the moment. As you can see there, it's connected to the Wi-Fi. we're going to get our game cart to make sure it's still working as it will be. So we'll just get Pac-Man and we'll pop Pac-Man in. Just click it into place, and then as you can see, it's fully reading. So it was that chip on the back, which I was never aware of before, that needed a reflow, that can have such an influence on the game cart reading or not. So 2 Switch Lites for £40, one of them back to restored condition and works perfect. Unfortunately, the other one doesn't work, so I will need a little bit of advice if you can with that one. So if you can give me any pointers or tips on what I can go back to on a little revisit on trying to fix it, that'd be really much appreciated. But hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you'll like and subscribe, and please leave a comment. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.